I'm Veronica, the woman who thought she had it all, living in a glass fortress above Chicago, draped in designer elegance, and married to a titan of industry, Richard Henshaw. For years, I've been his perfect shadow, a polished gem reflecting his power, until one fateful day on the 60th floor of his empire changed everything. A single whispered command, a chilling look in his eyes, and the weight of unspoken deals pushed me into a dark, forbidden territory I never imagined I'd cross. My heart raced with a mix of dread and a dangerous thrill as I stood at the edge of betrayal, surrounded by wolves in suits. What did Richard mean by trust in this ruthless game of power, and how far was I willing to go to secure our kingdom? Stick around, because the truth I uncovered in that moment will leave you speechless. Picture this: a world suspended above the chaos, where the air is thin and every word carries the weight of 1,000 unspoken promises. My name is Veronica, and for the past 15 years, I've been the shadow to a titan. At 43, I've sculpted myself into the perfect silhouette of a wife, polished, poised, and perpetually adorned in tailored designer outfits that hug my frame like a second skin. My auburn hair is always swept into an elegant updo, not a strand out of place, and my smile? Oh, it's a masterpiece, practiced in front of mirrors until it could charm the devil himself. I'm married to Richard Henshaw, the iron-willed CEO of Henshaw Enterprises, a tech conglomerate that sprawls across continents like a spider's web. And me? I'm the gem on his arm, the silent force at his side, reflecting his power back to the world. Our kingdom sits on the 60th floor of the company headquarters in downtown Chicago, a glass fortress piercing the sky. Richard's office is a realm unto itself, a sprawling expanse with floor-to-ceiling windows that frame Lake Michigan like a living painting, its waters glinting under the sun or brooding under storm clouds. At the center of this domain stands a massive mahogany desk, a monolith of authority that seems to anchor the room. Richard calls it the heart of the business, his voice booming with pride as he gestures to it during meetings. This is where everything gets decided, not just the numbers, he'll say to his partners, a sly grin curling his lips, a glint in his eye that I've never quite deciphered. There's a depth to his words, a hidden current I've always sensed, but never dared to explore. I've stood by that desk countless times, watching as deals are sealed and futures are shaped, my heels clicking softly on the polished floor, my presence a quiet echo to his command. I've memorized the faces of the men who orbit Richard's world, the ones who hold the strings to fortunes I can barely fathom. There's Marcus Reed, a silver-haired venture capitalist whose smirk reminds me of a wolf baring its teeth, always hungry for the next kill. Then there's Daniel Voss, a younger tech mogul with eyes so sharp they could cut through steel, every glance calculating, every word measured. And finally, Ethan Caldwell, a man whose silence is louder than most men's shouts. He's an imposing figure, broad-shouldered and unreadable, filling any room with a presence that makes even Richard pause. I've watched them circle that mahogany desk, their voices low and intense, while I stand at Richard's side, the ever-perfect companion. Richard calls me his escort, a term he uses with a proud, almost possessive edge, as if I'm a rare artifact to be displayed. He loves to show me off during presentations, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back, guiding me through rooms full of powerful men who nod in approval. I play my part flawlessly, beautiful. As the first light of dawn creeps through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our penthouse, I'm already up, moving through the familiar rhythm of a morning that's as polished as the marble floors beneath my feet. The city of Chicago sprawls below, a maze of steel and ambition, but up here, it's just me and the quiet hum of expectation. I stand before the mirror in our bedroom, smoothing the cream-colored silk blouse over my shoulders, the fabric cool against my skin. The pencil skirt I've chosen hugs my hips just right, a deliberate choice to match Richard's vision for today's investor presentation. He's always particular about these details, and I've learned to anticipate his preferences, to become the image he wants projected to the world. My reflection stares back, auburn hair pinned into an elegant updo, lips painted a subtle rose. I look the part, but there's a flicker in my eyes, a restlessness I can't quite name, not yet. Downstairs, Richard is already waiting, his presence filling the space before I even see him. The scent of freshly brewed coffee lingers as I descend the spiral staircase, my heels clicking softly. He's in a charcoal suit, sharp as a blade, standing by the window with a phone pressed to his ear, barking orders in that low, commanding tone that makes people listen. When he sees me, he ends the call abruptly, his gaze sweeping over me with a nod of approval. "Perfect," he says, and though it's just one word, it carries the weight of a verdict. We don't linger long. There's no time for idle chatter. Soon, we're sliding into the back seat of his sleek black Bentley, the leather cool against my legs as the driver pulls us into the early morning traffic. The ride to the office is a ritual in itself. Richard's hand rests on my knee, a familiar gesture that feels both possessive and reassuring. His fingers press lightly, a silent claim, as he turns to me with that half-smile I've come to know so well. "You're my ace today, Veronica. Make them remember us," he murmurs, his voice a velvet growl that sends a shiver down my spine. There's always something in his words, a layered meaning I can't quite unravel. Is it pride, expectation, or something darker, something that lurks beneath the surface of his polished exterior? I nod, offering him the smile I've perfected over the years, but inside, my thoughts churn. I'm his ace, his weapon, his display. But for how long can I keep playing this role without losing a piece of myself? We arrive at the headquarters, a towering glass structure that pierces the sky like a declaration of dominance. The lobby buzzes with activity, employees darting about with purpose, their eyes flicking toward us as we stride through. In the glass elevator, we ascend to the 60th floor, the city shrinking below us until it's just a distant grid of lights and shadows. I catch my reflection in the mirrored walls. Here I am, standing in Richard's office on the 60th floor, the weight of the moment pressing down on me like the city skyline beyond the windows. The investor presentation has just wrapped, and the room still hums with the afterglow of sealed deals and firm handshakes. Marcus Reed, Daniel Voss, and Ethan Caldwell linger near the mahogany desk, their voices low, their eyes occasionally flicking toward me with an intensity I can't ignore. Richard, my husband, the man who's always been my anchor, stands beside me, his presence as commanding as ever. But then, he leans in close, his breath warm against my ear, and whispers, "Show them we're open to any form of trust." His words are paired with a wink, and his gaze pierces through me, sharp and unyielding, like a blade cutting through silk. I freeze, my carefully crafted smile faltering for just a split second. What does he mean? My mind races, scrambling to decode the hidden message in his tone, the implication behind that look. Trust? In what way? I stand there, rooted to the spot, my heart thudding in my chest as I try to piece it together. The room suddenly feels smaller, the air thicker, like it's pressing against my skin. I notice Marcus Reed stand up from his chair, his movements slow and deliberate, almost predatory. He rounds the heavy desk, his polished shoes silent on the floor, and approaches me with a purpose that makes my breath catch. I don't move, don't dare to, as he reaches out and touches my wrist. His fingers are cool, firm, sending a jolt through me that I can't suppress. Instinctively, I glance at Richard, searching for a reaction, a sign, anything to tell me what to do. But he's leaning back in his chair now, his expression unreadable, a mask of stone. Yet his eyes, those dark, intense eyes, are locked on mine with a chilling focus that makes my stomach twist. There's no anger, no surprise, just expectation. My pulse hammers as I realize he's not going to stop this. He's not going to intervene. I don't pull away from Marcus, though every rational part of me screams to. Instead, I'm caught in this storm of emotions: shock, fear, and something else. Something darker, a forbidden thrill that I can't name but can't deny either. It's then that the horrifying truth crashes over me like a wave. Richard isn't just allowing this, he's orchestrating it. This isn't a spontaneous moment of weakness or betrayal. It's calculated, deliberate, a twisted display of power and control. My mind reels as I stand there, surrounded by these men, Marcus, Daniel, and Ethan, the three Richard once called the key to our growth. And now, here in his office, on that massive wooden desk that he's always dubbed the heart of the business, I cross a line I never imagined I'd approach. It's a moment of surrender, a dance of dominance and submission that unfolds with an intensity I can't escape. The desk creaks under the weight of the unspoken. The rustle of fabric fills the silence, and beyond the windows, the distant hum of the city seems to fade into a muted roar, as if the world itself is holding its breath. Richard watches from his chair, unmoving, unspeaking, his silence louder than any words could be. His gaze never wavers, and I feel it like a physical touch, heavy and inescapable. I'm torn apart inside as it happens. There's a rush, a surge of power and desire that courses through me, raw and unfiltered, like a current I can't control. It's intoxicating, the way it strips away the polished veneer I've worn for so long, leaving me exposed, vulnerable, but also alive in a way I haven't felt in years. Yet, even as I'm caught in that tide, guilt gnaws at the edges of my mind, sharp and relentless. How did I get here? How did I let myself become this pawn in Richard's game, this offering to seal whatever deal he's chasing? I've betrayed him, right here in his sanctuary. The silence that follows is suffocating, a heavy blanket draped over the room, smothering every sound except the erratic thudding of my own heart. I stand there, frozen near the edge of Richard's massive mahogany desk, the heart of his empire, my mind still reeling from what just transpired. The investors, Marcus Reed, Daniel Voss, and Ethan Caldwell, move with an eerie nonchalance, as if the air hasn't just been charged with something dark and irreversible. Marcus adjusts the lapels of his suit, smoothing them down with a casual flick of his wrist, before sinking back into his leather chair. Daniel straightens his tie, his sharp eyes already scanning some document on the table, while Ethan, ever the silent giant, simply leans back, crossing his arms, his face a blank slate. No flicker of emotion, no hint of what they're thinking. It's as if the last hour was just another line item on their agenda, a transaction completed and filed away. I can barely keep my hands steady as I smooth the fabric of my pencil skirt, the silk trembling under my fingertips. My breath comes in shallow, uneven gasps, like I'm trying to pull air through a straw. My mind is a tempest, a chaotic swirl of emotions I can't begin to untangle: shock, shame, and something else, something I'm afraid to name. A strange electric pulse of power that still lingers in my veins. I feel exposed, raw, like every layer of the polished Veronica I've built over the years has been stripped away, leaving me bare in a room full of predators. And yet, there's a part of me that's buzzing, alive in a way I haven't been in so long, as if I've just stepped off a ledge and found I could fly. But at what cost? What have I just done? I glance up, my eyes drawn to Richard as he rises from his chair. His movements are slow, deliberate, each gesture measured with the precision of a man who's never out of control. He adjusts his shirt cuffs, then tugs at his tie, smoothing it down with those long, steady fingers I've watched sign multi-million-dollar contracts. He looks untouched, unruffled, as if he's just concluded a routine board meeting. Then he turns to me, closing the distance between us with a few unhurried steps, his polished shoes silent on the hardwood floor. His face is a mask of calm, those dark eyes unreadable as they lock onto mine. He leans in close, so close I can feel the warmth of his breath against my cheek, and whispers, "You did well, Veronica. This seals it." His voice is low, smooth, but there's a cold edge to it, a transactional sharpness that cuts through me like a shard of ice. Seals what? My heart stumbles over itself, trying to decipher the weight behind his words. Is he talking about the deal with these investors, or something far more personal, something I've just sacrificed without fully understanding? I stand there, rooted to the spot, as his words echo in my mind, each syllable a puzzle piece that doesn't fit. The room feels surreal, like I've stepped into a distorted version of reality where I'm both player and pawn in a game I never agreed to join. I've always known Richard's world was one of strategy and leverage, but this feels like a chessboard I didn't even know I was on. And yet, as much as I want to recoil, to demand answers, there's a part of me that feels empowered. I played my role, didn't I? I crossed a line I never thought I'd approach, and in doing so, I held their attention, their respect, maybe even their desire. But for what? What did I just trade away in that charged, unspoken exchange? Behind Richard, the investors have already resumed their discussion, their voices a low murmur of numbers and projections, as if the storm that just passed through this room was nothing more than a fleeting breeze. Marcus gestures animatedly, pointing at some chart on the table, while Daniel nods, his expression all business. Ethan remains silent, his gaze occasionally drifting toward me, heavy and unreadable, before returning to the conversation. I'm invisible again. The investors finally file out of the office, their footsteps fading down the hallway, leaving behind an emptiness that feels heavier than their presence ever did. I stand near the massive mahogany desk, the so-called heart of Richard's empire, and let my gaze wander across the now desolate space. The late afternoon sun spills through the panoramic windows, casting long, jagged shadows across the polished surface of the desk, stretching like dark fingers reaching for something just out of grasp. The light paints the room in hues of amber and gold, but there's no warmth in it. Instead, it feels like a spotlight, exposing every raw nerve I'm trying to hide. The quiet that settles over us is suffocating, a thick, oppressive silence that presses against my chest, making each breath a conscious effort. It's just me and Richard now, alone in this glass fortress suspended above Chicago, and the weight of what happened hangs between us like a storm cloud ready to break. I turn to him, my heart pounding so hard I'm sure he can hear it in this deafening stillness. He's standing by the window, hands clasped behind his back, staring out at the city as if nothing has changed, as if the ground beneath us hasn't just shifted. My throat feels tight, like I'm choking on the words I've been holding back for too long, but I can't keep them in anymore. I take a step closer, my heels clicking sharply against the hardwood, the sound cutting through the silence like a knife. My voice, when it finally comes, is shaky, but firm, each word trembling with the weight of my confusion and pain. Why? Why did you let this happen? I ask, my eyes searching his face for any crack in that impenetrable mask he always wears. He turns slowly, almost too slowly, as if he's been expecting this question all along. His expression is calm, almost clinical, like he's diagnosing a problem rather than addressing the wreckage of what just unfolded. He steps closer, his dark eyes locking onto mine with a precision that makes my skin prickle. "Veronica," he begins, his voice smooth and measured, Trust in business sometimes demands unconventional sacrifices. What happened here? With them, it wasn't just a moment, it was a bond. Your participation ensured their loyalty in a way no contract, no handshake could ever guarantee. His words are cold, calculated, each one landing like a stone in the pit of my stomach. I feel hollowed out, like he's carved away a piece of me with every syllable. I was a tool, a bargaining chip in his grand design, a means to an end. And yet, he doesn't stop there. He tilts his head slightly, a faint, almost paternal smile tugging at his lips. "We're stronger for this, Veronica. You'll see," he adds, as if this is some shared victory, as if I should be proud of the role I played. His words echo in my mind, twisting and turning, each one a shard of glass cutting deeper. Stronger? How can he say that when I feel like I'm unraveling, thread by thread? I want to scream at him, to demand how he could orchestrate something so personal, so invasive, and call it strength. But the words won't come. Instead, I'm drowning in a flood of conflicting emotions, each one pulling me in a different direction. There's anger, hot and sharp, burning through me at the realization of how he manipulated me, how he positioned me as a piece on his chessboard without ever asking if I wanted to play. There's shame, too, a heavy, suffocating weight that makes me want to shrink into myself, to disappear from his gaze and the memory of what I allowed to happen. But beneath it all, there's something else, something I'm terrified to admit even to myself. I enjoyed it. The power, the attention, the forbidden edge of it all, it ignited something in me, a dark, hungry part of myself I didn't know existed. And as much as I hate Richard for pulling me into this, for using me, I can't bring myself to regret it. That truth sits like a stone in my chest, heavy and unmovable, a secret I'm not sure The days following that fateful afternoon on the 60th floor pass in a blur, a carefully choreographed dance of normalcy that feels anything but normal. Richard and I slip back into our polished routine as if nothing has shifted, as if the air between us isn't charged with a current of unspoken truths. We attend glittering galas, my arm looped through his, my smile as flawless as the diamond necklace resting against my collarbone. I wear emerald gowns that shimmer under chandeliers, and he dons tailored tuxedos, his presence commanding every room we enter. At board meetings, I sit at his side, the perfect accessory, nodding at the right moments, my auburn hair pinned elegantly, my notes meticulous. To the outside world, we are the untouchable power couple, the embodiment of success at Henshaw Enterprises. But beneath the surface, there's a tension that hums like a live wire. I catch him watching me more closely now, his dark eyes lingering a fraction too long, as if he's searching for a crack in my facade, or perhaps measuring the new strength he believes he's forged in me. And I can't help but watch him too, wondering what other calculations are spinning behind that unreadable gaze. In the quiet moments, when the world isn't watching, I find myself haunted by memories of that day in his office. I'm in the middle of pouring coffee in our penthouse kitchen, the rich aroma curling around me, when I freeze, the image of that mahogany desk flashing unbidden in my mind. I remember the way the light caught its polished surface, the weight of the silence, the charged atmosphere that seemed to pull me under. There's a pang of guilt that twists in my chest, sharp and cold, for the boundaries I crossed, for the part of myself I gave up in that moment of orchestrated surrender. But there's something else too, a whisper of longing I can't silence, a pull toward the raw, untamed energy I felt when I stepped into that forbidden space. It's a conflict I wrestle with in the dead of night, lying awake beside Richard, his steady breathing a stark contrast to the storm in my mind. How can I despise what happened and yet crave the power it awakened in me. Word comes a week later that the deal with Marcus Reed, Daniel Voss, and Ethan Caldwell has gone through. A massive influx of capital pours into Henshaw Enterprises, a financial triumph that secures the company's dominance for years to come. At a private dinner in our penthouse, with the city lights twinkling below us like a sea of stars, Richard raises a glass of aged scotch to toast the success. His smile is sharp, victorious, as he turns to the small group of executives gathered around our dining table. But later, when it's just the two of us, the clink of crystal echoing in the quiet, he leans in close, his voice a low murmur meant for my ears only. "You're my secret weapon, Veronica," he says, his hand brushing mine, the touch both a claim and a compliment. There's pride in his tone, a possessiveness that sends a shiver down my spine, but also a flicker of something like respect. I meet his gaze, my own expression carefully neutral. But inside, my heart races. Secret weapon. The words linger, a double-edged sword, reminding me of the role I played, the sacrifice I made, and the power I wielded in doing so. That moment marks a turning point for me, a quiet shift in how I see myself in this gilded cage of a life. I've spent years as Richard's shadow, reflecting his light, bending to his will. But now, standing on the other side of that dark transaction, I feel a newfound sense of agency blooming within me, like a flower pushing through cracked pavement. If I'm to be a player in this ruthless game of power and ambition, I decide, I'll play by my own rules from now on. I won't just be the pawn moved across the board at his whim. I'll carve my own path, make my own moves, even if it means navigating a moral gray area I never thought I'd inhabit. There's a thrill in that thought, a dangerous excitement that mirrors the rush I felt in. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.